Yes, it's on. Thank you, Arthur. Okay, I'm going to call the October 31st Union County Board of Education Curriculum Committee meeting to order. Thank y'all, everybody, for being here. And the first thing I need is an approval of the minutes, a motion from September 27th. Got a first motion? Second. Thank y'all. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. The next thing on the agenda is the dual language immersion update. And I'll turn that over to Dr. Jones. And I've asked him to bring some other data to us. And he's going to present that too about this immersion.
Okay. We'd like to say good morning to everyone, and we wish to provide you information on what we're doing with our dual language immersion program. And because there are some numbers and other things involved, we did do a quick presentation that we'll make available to you as well as any members who wish to have a copy of that. I just need to pull that up.
Could maybe Kay, during the course of today, either get us a hard copy or an electronic copy? Okay. We do not have dual immersion at middle schools now. What?
Good or you? Okay. We have a total of 11 immersion programs in Union County Public Schools. The board has shown wonderful support for these programs in the past, and we're excited to continue to be a leader in North Carolina with immersion programs in our schools. We currently have what we call 9 one-way immersion programs and two-way immersion programs. The one-way program, the 9, used to be referred to as Splash. As you've been around, you've heard about the Splash. That was a term from Participate, which used to be VIF. We no longer use that term, so we call that the one-way immersion program. Basically, they're all native English speakers that are in that program, and the one-way programs are full immersion programs. Then we have two-way immersion programs that were begun this year at East and Walter Bickett Elementary. They are students who are speaking either English or Spanish, and they will continue their instruction in both languages. And this allows our native Spanish speakers to learn English while preserving and advancing their Spanish. It also allows native English speakers to learn Spanish while preserving their English. Half of the students' day is conducted in English and the other half is conducted in Spanish. And again, they're at East and they're at Walter Bickett.
All right, I have a question about that. How many students do we have the dual immersion at Walter Bickett? In half English, half Spanish.
I don't have the Walter Bickett numbers with us currently. I have the numbers currently that we have that will be going to 6th grade, but I did not bring the Walter Bickett numbers with us.
Okay, that's one of the things I had asked about.
Well, we can get that for you.
Okay, what I want to see first is with these English as a second language to a child, are the grades better in those dual immersion classes than they are in a English all day class?
So what we'll do is if we can go through the presentation and let me give you what we're going to be talking about regarding our 5th grade, and then outstanding questions like that, or you want information, we certainly can provide that and bring that to you. That's a good question. Let me go through this, and then if it's not answered in that, then we'll certainly
That'll be fine.
come back to that. This slide shows what our current reality is and what we currently offer. If it has an M next to it, it's a program that's offered in Mandarin. If it's an S, it's a program that's offered in Spanish. We currently have at Marvin, Shiloh, and Sun Valley classes that have gone all the way from kindergarten, students who have participated in the program from kindergarten through 5th grade. Then at 4th grade, We have a Mandarin program at Kensington, Spanish program at Unionville, and so far UC. Each of the year, the students progress to the next grade level, and we do add a year to our immersion programs. So as you can see, we have 3 elementary schools that have students who are going to be going to middle school next year, and that is why we are here today. Just a couple of goals we want to remind you of as far as looking at our middle school program. First of all, we want to make sure that we continue the integrity of what we have planned for our immersion programs. Parents have been ensured since they enrolled their children in kindergarten that we will be looking at continuing the program into middle school, and our investments in our students we feel is just too valuable to end at the middle school level. The second goal of the program is to minimize the sacrifices students have to make to stay in the immersion program. You know, we want to be sure that students would be able, when they get to middle school, to take band and experience a full range of electives in the 6th and the 7th grade as they make their decisions about which classes they take during their middle school, as well as when they get to their year-long program in 8th grade. Our hope is that we'll continue to make the immersion program attractive so that our students will continue the investment. We would like to see them continue throughout the K-12 continuum, building upon what we've started in the program. We also want to make sure that certainly this is sustainable from a fiscal responsibility standpoint. Middle school schedules can be tough. They're pretty complex. So we have worked with the Dual Language Immersion Advisory Board, and I'll show you those names in a few minutes, but we've had principals, we've had parents, we've had students involved with making sure that we get their input regarding how to move forward so that the schedules will allow the teacher who teaching the program for him or her to be able to teach the immersion students in grades 6 through 8 once we have all of the grades fully articulated. We want to prepare students for their high school language. We want to make sure that their next experience, that when they're headed after middle school, that we're really providing a content immersion experience. You really get, like high school courses, much deeper into the content. So we want to make sure that we're preparing students for advanced language tracks. These are just some members of our DLI, our Dual Language Advisory Board. And again, you do see from representatives, particularly from the middle schools that are affected next year. You have principals, you have a teacher, you have a parent on there, the Office of School Performance, Teaching and Learning, and even Human Resources. So this is
who are the teachers on there, John?
So the teacher on there, Donna Podgorny, is a teacher. She also works as a coordinator to support the program. And then she works for that. And then Jennifer Aldridge is a parent, as well as she also works as an assistant principal, but she served as a parent on this board. She's a part of. And then you have principals that are a part of that as well.
So we got 2 out of all of them that's either a parent or a teacher.
That's the current group that we have.
Does Miss Podgorny teach all day?
No, sir. She works with supporting programs.
So does she teach any?
What she does is she works with coaching and working with teachers. She coaches and she does work in the classroom sometimes and co-teaching, but she doesn't have a class that she's daily responsible. She doesn't have a daily class that she is assigned with. Yes, sir.
On the board
We don't have any industry leaders there.
What was the question?
This is something, do we have any industry leaders that are on the board? That's certainly something that we can expand. We could look at expanding that board.
Well, just to throw something out, board members, I'm all for Spanish. What I really want to focus on today is Manchurian. Manchurian, Chinese. Mandarin. They speak Mandarin in Manchuria.
So what we are wanting to do for next year for the students that will be going to middle school is we propose that the students take science and social studies in Chinese or Spanish, depending upon what their preparation is. If they've taken the Mandarin program at the elementary, then they would participate in Mandarin at middle school, and likewise for Spanish in the 6th and the 7th grade. And that they would take a year-long advanced language course in 8th grade. The students would have the potential to earn up to 3 credit hours in world language when they get to the 8th grade. In the 6th and 7th grade, the students would again take the social studies and science. We would have a teacher that would work with the students in their language that they've studied in 6th and 7th grade for the science and the social studies. We have already confirmed to DPI that this would be allowable. DPI said that there would be, that this, we could certainly approach it in this model, and we would work with Participate in securing a teacher. Starting now, we would have the time to be able to work and do that.
So I just want to add on this piece. This is a big, most school systems across the nation that have dual language anything in your middle grades will say, we're going to have you take an elective course in Spanish or an elective course in Mandarin. And we've come together as a team and said, if we do that here in Union County, we believe that would be a disservice. These children have already had 6 years in that language. So putting them in an elective, we believe will actually allow them to regress. So the idea of having them teach a non-tested EOG subject like science and social studies for 2 grade levels, 6th and 7th grade, in that content would be much more beneficial than just putting them in an elective where they're already proficient in that language. So
These students are bilateral, is that correct?
Correct.
And we will get to the numbers somewhere at the end.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll be glad to share those numbers with you. So when we get to the progression. And just a note from what Dr. Houlihan, to extend on what he was speaking, you say, well, when you get to the high school level, students actually, when they get to the high school for their Chinese or their Spanishes, like level 1 or level 2, they could use CDM, which is called credit by demonstrated mastery. In other words, they have the opportunity to show that they have a mastery of that, and they could test out. And then you go into more of the heritage courses that are available, AP courses that would be available to students that they could take at the high school level. Level 3, level 4 classes, they can actually assume that quicker.
now I don't want to use this term, but I will. The $1 million question is, where do you find the teacher? Where do you find the middle school teacher that is certified to teach 6th grade science and social studies that is also bilingual? And that's the big issue that we're going to have with this, which is now we have a benefit because from a certification standpoint, teachers in North Carolina can be certified K-6. So there may be a Mandarin teacher at Marvin or a Mandarin teacher at Kensington already that would say, I want to teach 6th grade next year, and we can move them up. Same with Spanish, but I'm just letting the board know that's going to be a big challenge that we're going to have is how do you staff middle school with someone who's bilingual certified in that content for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade? It's very rare. But we've already worked with Participate to help. They know now kind of where we're heading, and they can help us recruit someone. So,
If you answer it, do you get the $1 million?
no,
Well, the answer is North Carolina virtual. And that will deal with something else that I will share with you board members when we get to the end of it.
So you were talking about the program articulation, what we would look at doing for next year to continue providing support for these students. At Marvin Elementary, there are currently 15 students. Now, we began that program in kindergarten with 22, 23 students in that range. And as students go throughout the continuum, either if they move or they make a decision that a parent does not want their child in the program, or they wish they certainly have that opportunity, they can make a shift in their students' classes. So you have currently 15 students remaining in the Marvin Elementary program.
Roughly, what's the enrollment at Marvin Elementary?
Total enrollment, I don't have that number.
Is it up there in the 1,000 range?
No, sir. No, sir. 500 to 600, 600, somewhere in that range.
So we're talking about 3 to 4% of the total student population that Marvin has went from 22 to 15.
Through the continuum, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because students who may decide they may move, or the parent may decide that they don't want to continue the program all the way through fifth grade.
Now, I'm talking about Mandarin. I'm not talking
Correct.
about
That's
Spanish.
Mandarin. That's Mandarin. Would you like the Spanish participation at Shiloh and Sun Valley?
Yes.
16 currently in fifth grade, Sun Valley, 15 in the Spanish program there that you
And
have.
those are right beside each other and they'd be going to Sun Valley Middle. That'd be a perfect fit.
They would. They would. Well, Marvin Elementary, those students also naturally would go to Marvin Ridge Middle School too. So they would be assigned to go. So their progression would be Marvin Ridge Middle School, and then the Shiloh and Sun Valley Elementary students would go to Sun Valley Middle.
All right, we have some other elementary schools that's going to feed in there too, right?
Yes, sir.
Into the Marvin Ridge School.
Correct. So you're looking at the next year. Again, 2018-19, the current year that's ahead of us, that is what we would look at proposing. In 2019 and 2020, there would be, and Kensington's numbers right now in fourth grade, students currently in fourth grade, so they would be fifth grade, of course, at Kensington for next year. There are currently 16 students that are in the program at Kensington. Being concerned that there would not be enough students to justify staffing a program at Cuthbertson Middle, we would look at providing those students the opportunity to go to Kensington Elementary Cuthbertson, Marvin Ridge Middle School. So many schools. Those students in Kensington would go to Marvin Ridge Middle School. Transportation could be considered through a shuttle or maybe through a hub stop. That's something that we would.
But on that,
discuss.
then we have the factor that the parents will be making. Do I want these children to leave their classmates that they've been with for 6 years
Mhm.
and go to another school? Now, I know we can't keep them in a protected environment with friends their whole
Sure.
life, but
Mhm.
And the whole transportation piece, we still need to think through. We've not made a decision as to whether or not we would offer transportation or not.
Mhm.
It's been a thought as to whether or not that'd be something that's feasible that we could do, or that it would be cost efficient, but
Right.
that is something that we're still evaluating. We've got another year to evaluate that whole piece. So the issue that we have in Union County is when these dual language programs started, someone asked me, if you were to change dual language, what would you do? And I said, very simply, I'd make it a school-wide model. In other words, if you're zoned to Kensington and that's where you go, beginning in kindergarten, you're going to be in the Mandarin program. All of you. But that's not the way that it was established here, which is fine. But at the same time, your numbers are so small that you cannot afford to have every single middle school with a dual language program. You can't staff it that way. There's no way you can effectively do that. So combining some clusters where we have to, that's really maybe one of our only options. So that's why you've got the issue of the Kensington kids going to Marvin Ridge Middle School.
thank you.
And then that same year, you have Unionville students that they will be ready to go to middle school. And then we would look at establishing a Piedmont Middle School.
How many are at Unionville or will be,
17 we see right now.
which is unusually low classes
Mhm.
for middle school, right?
For middle school, yes.
Dr. Jones, do we, those are the 2020, 1920 that are going to go to, like the Unionville students? That's the first year. What's the numbers for the third graders, the second graders? Do we know the enrollment numbers on
I
those?
don't, but I can provide that for you.
We can provide it. I want to say, I believe that they're above 17.
Well, that was my
Yeah.
question, because a lot of parents are looking at that first group
Mhm.
to go through to see how it's going to work
Mhm.
before they enroll if they have younger children.
And then if they go above 17, if House Bill 13 goes through, we're going to have 2 Mandarin classes because we can't exceed it, or do we have any flexibility?
you have a little flexibility on a waiver process for what's called a single curriculum. But that's very fluid in the law right now. I do have some concerns about that.
What we're seeing in the numbers in these programs is you're starting out at 23, some 22, but 22, 23 students in kindergarten. And as they move through the progression, there you are losing some kids, or you have some kids that are leaving the program. You also have some kids, a few kids who have moved into the area, and they show that they have been in a dual language immersion program. And if they qualify and there's space, then they can apply and come in. So you do have a few that have entered, but usually what we're seeing is those numbers have been tapering around to about 15, 17, 18, somewhere there.
On the English as second language students, and those students who have limited English proficiency, I think I can support fully that in the middle schools, because it seems like to me it gives us a way of raising those children up. I mean, they learn English in the morning and then they review it in the evening in Spanish.
Mhm.
But I told John a little story. At Parkwood High School in 1969, I enrolled in French, and I proceeded to take 3 years of it because the teacher was 25 years old and beautiful, and the Spanish teacher was 50 and just looked like we all do when we turn 50. And when I got at Wingate College, everybody could speak Spanish but me. And when I told them I had 3 years of French, they said, "Do we touch France?" And I never thought about it. And I have not run into a Frenchman yet, except when I watch Dr. Clouseau.
Gotcha.
So my point is, let's teach the languages that are around us.
Yes, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Certainly also, we have come into some industries in Union County that have, that are based in the Orient, or based in other countries as well, Germany as well. And so, yes, certainly we want to try to support all as we're talking about that.
Charlotte is a financial center,
Mhm.
and there is a ton of Germans
Yes, sir.
in the Charlotte business
Yes, sir.
area.
Mhm. And then looking at following and what we're aiming to look at, but some decisions down the road as we make this movement into middle school, and looking in 2020, 2021, you have Unionville. Poplin is another that we would have to look at. Poplin right now is in the Porter Ridge cluster. However, it would be a possibility that Poplin students would be able to take advantage if we were to cluster the program at Piedmont Middle School, so that it's able to be sustained, and we're able to sustain the program. We would look at a consideration for Piedmont Middle School. At this time, Weddington and Antioch, Weddington Middle School, we would feed into there. We'd need to decide Western Union, what we're going to do, and look, if that is the only program that's in the Parkwood cluster, would we be able to sustain that there, or would we consider another school nearby that
Parkwood has to be determined.
no, Western Union is
I
to be
mean, Western
determined.
Union has a language to be determined.
Well, no, those would be the year that the students who take the Spanish program currently would have students going to middle school. So that would be the year that their students will progress into the middle school. So we would need to determine at that time if we would look at Parkwood Middle, or if we would look at another program that's standing.
Gary, did you have a comment?
No,
Okay.
I'm fine.
And then 2025, hard to believe, 2026, Easton Walter Bickett would progress to Monroe Middle School.
But these are Spanish.
Those are Spanish. Yes, sir.
And this will be a board decision, not a central office, ultimately a central office decision.
This is the recommendation we are headed in at this time. Yes, sir.
But it still has to be voted on.
I don't know if it has to be voted on. It's not, this is a academic programming, not necessarily a financial issue, I don't think. So I don't know.
I said not at this point.
Not at this point, no.
But I mean, if we decide we're going to do Mandarin at one of those schools next year, where we're going to have to bring 3 schools to one middle school and one of them out of district, Should that not be a board decision?
We're happy to bring it to the board for a discussion.
So it will be brought to the board.
Sure. This is our recommendation to the curriculum committee. We'll take your feedback at the current time. But we've got to, at some point in time, move on this. If the board feels like you all need to vote on this and take action, then we can certainly do that if it means combining clusters. But you're not going to get to that point till a year from now.
We're- Go ahead, Chris.
When is the parent meeting?
So we're providing parents information today on what we would like at Marvin Elementary. In
So
Kensington
today.
and Sun Valley,
So it's
yes, we
gonna be
would like to
before our board
provide
meeting.
information. They've been asking, and we said we needed to present the curriculum first, and then we would follow up with a meeting.
But again, you're not getting to the point where you have to have students from one cluster go into another cluster like Kensington to Marvin until a
Right.
year from now.
Right. It's-
Well, what about the NC virtual? Could it be done with that?
We don't currently offer an immersion program through NC Virtual. Students in middle school can take a language, can take a foreign language, but that is simply learning the language. Because it's immersion, it's integrated in with the science and social studies.
Well, let's be innovative and make it happen in virtual.
But how effective is that in a virtual class at an element or at a middle school level? Are those kids able to participate?
Well, what
I
we,
mean, is it better for the students to be in a seated class versus a virtual class?
it's recommended face-to-face at that level, certainly for our foreign languages. We have to teach the standards of science and social studies. And all that we've done, we've had to assure the state of North Carolina in every one of the grades that we're teaching the standards. So this allows us to be able to teach the science and the social studies standards, as well as build upon the language experience. You also have the written component in this. For example, in Mandarin, the language that they are writing that may not be offered through a virtual program or may not be offered.
Another thing you told me last week, and this made it a little more palatable. You said what we would love to have is a social studies teacher that can do Mandarin. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What we really would like, science and social studies. And as you and I talked about last year, remember at the 6th grade level, that person can be certified elementary. In North Carolina, your certification can be K-6 in that area. So who knows, we may even have a teacher that may consider looping with the students.
And that would give
in the
them a
middle
year to
school.
get up through 8 if,
We would offer the science and social, yes, sir.
Dr. Jones, will the program be available for students that have like transferred into the school?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So on that, we would, if you have a student that transfers in or moves and is new to the community, as long as they have been enrolled in some kind of language program, and we would have to test them, they'd have to have a proficiency exam. And if they meet the qualifying score, then they could be admitted.
We had one arrive this year from another state, California, as a matter of fact, and they showed proficiency and their experience. They're fitting in beautifully.
well, let me get this straight. You're meeting with parents about this today, and I would assume the conversation is going to be, we're putting everything in place to get it done.
This is what we're aiming to do at this time. Yes, sir.
I support the Spanish. I need to hear more on the Mandarin.
Okay. What more on the Mandarin do you need to hear? What questions would that be specific?
I just don't think we can be everything to everybody. I would rather do a lot of stuff great instead of everything good.
So the one thing to remember about that is Marvin Ridge, we're doing what we've offered those students all along. The Marvin elementary students have been the Mandarin model. So we're going to keep the same thing for them. But that is what we have done in that cluster. And what we have at the Sun Valley cluster, we're going to do the same thing we've done there in Spanish. We're not adding anything additional. We're not adding, and I understand what you're saying, but if we were to say, we're going to take those students from Marvin Elementary into middle school, and we're going to offer them a Spanish immersion, then yes, that would be certainly expanding and stretching. Although the students who are Mandarin, who've taken Mandarin, they could possibly look at also participating in the Spanish wheel when they do the exploratory. There are options that those students have. But back to what you're saying, we will be doing the same that we've done at the elementary for those students.
And I know you say we promised them, but we live in a world where you don't get what you were promised. People have took stuff away from us yearly. You can have your own insurance policy. In 30 years, the data shows that we will be outnumbered by Hispanics in the population. That's why I'm a total supporter of Spanish. I don't even see Mandarin on the projection of,
Dr. Jones, that, like, it may be helpful to include like an industry leader on the advisory board, because I believe companies like Goulston or some of the organizations may be able to show that Mandarin and some of the other languages are effective.
Well, and we can certainly send you the research. Based on my understanding, when you look at the top 3 languages spoken from an economic standpoint in terms of future jobs, Spanish normally rates as 1 and Mandarin is 2nd. The 3rd, ironically, is Arabic. And I've had experience of starting an Arabic immersion school back in my former system. So from an economic standpoint, you've got alignment between current and future job and economic growth with that 2nd language. And so fundamentally, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Rabe, that people make promises and then they backtrack on them. Fundamentally, from an educational standpoint, I do believe firmly that if you offer a dual language experience K through 5, and then all of a sudden we don't offer that in 6, 7, 8, or in high school, you're going to have a disservice to those kids. You're going to have regression from a language standpoint, and educationally, I don't think that's the right thing to do, which is why we're saying that we need to continue this in middle school.
And this is just a natural continuation
Correct.
of the program as it is in Spanish or Mandarin or whatever language we offer it in.
Correct.
And what's the time frame that we need to put the word out to get teachers in place for these middle school positions?
So we have met with Participate, and we've met with them and said, this is the direction that we will be sharing, and can you work at providing that? And, they're committed to doing that.
You know, one interesting thing, and actually Chris Barnes came up with this, our head of HR, is a co-teach model, where almost like you would with exceptional children's, where you've got a teacher of record that is an English teacher teaching social studies or science, but your Mandarin or your Spanish teacher comes in as well in a class of 30 with only 15 kids that are in the dual language, and you co-teach. And when it's time for that targeted instruction, those kids in a small group setting receive instruction from the Spanish teacher or the Mandarin teacher. A different kind of concept that is really kind of unique in the sense that you don't have to have another classroom. You don't have to have another space. You're just pushing in, which I think could be kind of pretty innovative from a staffing standpoint.
One thing also just to share is that we have a partnership with the Confucius Society, as we call it, the Confucius Grant. And through that, we have sent teachers from across the county every summer to China for teaching experiences. Marvin Ridge has a partnership. They have a partner school, a sister school. They have a sister school, and they have actually students who have visited to China, and then students who have come in. They've done that as well. So there are parts within the continuum that they've done to bridge and have that emphasis on Mandarin.
well, this is what I'll promise you. I do not make the decision. I support the Spanish 100%. I will make a motion at the November meeting, and if it's the choice of the full, if the board members want to do it, then I will accept it. But if they don't, I think we need to relook at the Mandarin.
And again, I don't know if this requires board action. So we'll certainly review that in terms of what would require it or not. But this is, from an academic programming standpoint, for the following school year, this is the plan. If the board needs to vote on merging clusters in terms of the following year, Marvin and Kensington, then obviously we need to get the board to vote on that. But for next year, I don't know if we need any board action.
Okay, if it's not, does not require board action, then I will work through policy to make it board action.
Did you have any other questions?
You're gonna get us the numbers all
Yes,
the
sir.
way up in these schools
I can provide that. Yes, sir.
because it's gonna affect the realignment.
I can give you the current numbers that we have. Yes, sir.
What are the dual language scores in those classes? I would like to know that too. One of them's Walter Beckett. We do dual language there, right?
Only in kindergarten this year. But yes,
Why did you go down with such a high?
this is the first year of dual language. You build it 1 year at a time. So this is just kindergarten.
We started Mandarin at Walter Beckett.
Spanish,
Spanish.
Okay.
That's the two.
two-way.
I'm fine with Spanish. I figured we already had it at Walter Beckett.
No, we did not.
Well, that might have helped the scores.
I firmly believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, it will help tremendously.
We can provide that information for you, sir.
Okay, moving on.
Dennis,
Yes, sir.
before you move on to the next topic, could I have someone call me on my landline?
Yes. Who do you want to call you?
Well,
I've got the number right.
Yeah,
You want to get us to dial it right now, sir?
yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Can't turn it on first. I don't know.
Hello,
Hey, John, Gary,
hello.
we got you.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Okay, you ready to move on to 3-5 library?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Just to provide an update this morning regarding our progress for the 3-5 libraries update. As a reminder, last year, the curriculum committee recommended to the board that we purchase books to supplement classroom libraries in grades K through 2, as well as inventory our level book rooms at each of the schools. This was a part of our Literacy for You campaign, and we have done just that. So thanks to your direction, we're looking this year to support the purchase of books for grades 3 through 5 classroom libraries. We follow the same recommendations of 600 books per classroom. It is varied based upon teachers' inventories of what they've collected as well as what the school has purchased. So our aim, just as in K2, we're recommended for 600 books for each of the 3-5 classrooms. We're following the same process as last year. 2 weeks ago, I met with Scholastic Books, and they provide a digital inventory system that allows the teachers to give their input regarding what their current libraries are and where they would like to go. It's not just that they're counting books, but it also looks at providing information on genre, authors, collection, different areas that they are doing that and providing records of anything from numbers of tests to the varied genres and collections. Scholastic has collected the names of our teachers and classes at all of the rooms in grades 3 through 5, and they are currently building the inventory collection base. Once that is done, that will be sent to all of the teachers. The teachers will follow the process. The nice thing about it is they did this last year, so they'll have plenty of support at the school in going through this process. We're aiming to launch that November the 6th, and we will have the window open for 2 weeks, and Scholastic will provide after that a recommended report. Once that is ready, I will bring the amount requested and that information back to curriculum committee for further approval in purchasing the books. And of course, ultimately, that will be over $100,000, so it will require board approval. Noting that as these books are in grades 3 through 5, we'll be looking at books that are probably a little bit more expensive, maybe $1 or $2 more, because it's 3 through 5, you're dealing with chapter books and thicker books. But you may be looking at books that are a little bit more. However, they gave us a great discount last year, and we feel that they will do the same. The books, we hope to be shipped to the classrooms or the schools in January. That's what we would like to aim for, is after we go through the process and approved by the board, shipped in January. And then at that point, we want to look at middle school collection. Once we look at that and look at what we're doing with our, how much money we have, and we'll share that, then we want to look at how we can move forward with middle school. Decisions will have to be made at that time, of course, with middle school, whether we're looking at ELA or disciplinary literacy, which means looking at science and social studies. We know as middle schools have a complex schedule, we want to look across the curriculum and see what we can support. So that's our process on that.
I'll just say for what it's worth, so the board knows the support the board gave in terms of funding your classroom libraries and school-wide libraries K through 2, as I've taught with teachers this year, that has been tremendously positive, and the teachers are very thankful for that support. It is making a huge, huge difference in the quality that we're able to have across the entire school system. So I just want to say on behalf of the teachers, thank you for supporting this.
Dr. Houlihan, will we be able to use the grant money on the high priority, low achieving schools to put something in there since it's not there? So would you look at that?
We can't use the funding for that purpose. We could use it for things like staff development, but the actual purchasing of the materials, we cannot use that funding for that purpose. We would have to use our state allotment textbook funds or another source under Dr. Jones' budget.
And Ms. Sturdivant, what I learned, and I'm sure Ms. Hales knew this from previous years of service on curriculum, I was wanting to get it to the November board. Dr. Jones is letting the teachers get a inventory together of what
Correct.
they'd like to see. So that's the process. And he said it wouldn't be back before the November meeting. So it'll come in. And that was one of my learning factors. You know, I understand now when we go to classroom sets, we get the teacher input, which is great.
I have a question.
Okay, Gary.
Dr. Jones, your timeline is to actually purchase the books for the 3 to 5 libraries in January. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, the 2 weeks that we take them in November, we do the inventory. They will then collect all the information, and her name is Rashawn Marsh, will come back and meet with me. I would hope that would be at the end of November, the first part of December.
Okay.
Once we have that information, she will, of course, give us the cost. We'll bring it to you for the cost and then go from there. Once we're ready to purchase, we'll do everything preliminary so they can make it as quick as possible. Our goal would be that the books would be delivered sometime in January. That's our goal.
January. Okay, so the timing would be you would need to, you're aiming to have this ready for us at the December board meeting?
It is a goal to have that ready. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, great. And in it delivered and actually in the classroom in January?
Sometime in January is when they would aim to do that, because they would need,
Great.
once we approve the purchase, she has to go back and then build it school by school. So I would anticipate it's going to be January that would be the shipment.
Gary, Dr. Jones told me
Okay.
that last week that in a perfect world, it would be back at the end of Christmas break. But, you know, once it leaves once we purchase it, it's out of our court.
Well, I don't want to be the holdup. So if in December, if you can't make the deadline of the board meeting, I would support you calling a special meeting in order to approve the use of those funds. Since they're already in the budget, it's just a matter of approving the allocation, but I don't want to have to hold it up and miss the Christmas holiday if you can't have the proposal ready for our December board meeting.
Yes,
That's
sir.
a good suggestion, Gary.
Yes,
Very
sir.
good.
And I will talk again with Ms. Morris at Scholastic and make sure that she can deliver tight on our schedule.
Anything
Do
else?
you, do you have, Dr. Jones, do you have the manpower to physically distribute everything to every classroom, or do you just kind of dump it in the middle of the front of the school and each teacher goes and grabs their box?
Well, it is delivered actually by teacher name. That's one of the nice things about this. When they
Okay.
ship it, they ship it. If I'm a teacher, they're going to ship my books to Mr. Jones's attention to Mr. Jones. So when they arrive at the school, then the principal can call the teachers. They can pull them and go ahead and inventory and get those in the classes.
Yeah, just deliver them all to the gym and then teacher goes and gets their box from the gym or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Good question. Okay, moving on to CTE programming. Mr. Filter, would you come up? And if you would, sit right here so I can be sure to hear. All right, I've been trying to wrap my mind around CTE funding, so I'm on a thing that's real common in central office is buckets. So I want you to tell me all the buckets that your money goes into when it comes in.
Okay.
I'm a,
There's three main buckets.
okay.
There's federal.
I'm talking about what it's spent on.
Do you want line item by line item
That's-
budget? I mean,
Well, I'm hearing some complaints in the county from CTE teachers that can't get stuff that they've been able to get in the past. You know, if you remember the Auto Tech building at Forest Hills, and I've supported that, but it went from 150,000 to 457,000. And that's a big increase. It did.
I don't think it was ever that low, actually. It was more than we anticipated, but it was never that low.
That's the number I
Yeah.
was told
Okay.
at a facilities meeting. But anyway,
Anyway,
all right.
so I mean, I didn't come prepared to go a line item by line item, so I mean, I can get that information
All right.
for you and share that with you.
All right. Your budget pays CTE teacher salary.
Correct.
All right, so that's one bucket.
Correct.
CTE teachers.
And then you have supplies.
Call them, what is it?
Consumables.
Consumables.
So that would be supplies.
Took me 16 years to get used to that word. Don't want to quit. Okay, consumables bucket. What else?
And then we have resources, which might be software resources.
Resources bucket. You also have to pay this,
So that might be like we purchased the use of Adobe software or something of that nature. So then we
okay.
have a certification bucket. So we
Now,
pay for student certifications.
Now, on CTE teachers, this also includes the one lead teacher in each school that sort of,
That would cover that, yes.
I forget what they're called, the
We
one,
have an instructional management.
yeah.
person, yes.
So we've got all our CTE teachers and then one CT director in each school. All right, so we got resources. Do
And
we
we'll
have
We'll have equipment, computers.
equipment? Does that include buildings and
No, that's
Building.
strictly
equipment
equipment
and software?
and software. And software might go under resources as well, but that's fine.
When you buy this stuff, you have to code it to something, don't you?
Correct, yes.
So it's not going to be real hard to pull these figures on what you've
Correct,
spent.
yes, correct.
Do you ever move money from one bucket to the other?
So if I have budgeted something for consumables, it is possible that we don't use all of that and purchase some additional.
yes, we make
Resources, yes.
transfers. I mean,
Yes.
financially, if we have to make a transfer, then we'll make a transfer.
Okay. like, could it happen that consumable or resources get cut back because we hire more teachers?
Generally not, no.
Okay.
Mr. Rabe, if you have teachers that have reached out to you that are worried about they cannot get access to resources or items that they've had in the past, you just need to let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me know, let Dr. Jones or Mr. Filter know, and we can figure out what's going on.
Well,
We certainly want to make sure
I have
that-
reached out to Dr. Jones, but I asked him to let the system play out.
Mhm.
Because when I reach out, then the teachers are scared of retribution. One argument was over soap and towels.
There will be no retribution. At the end of the day, we owe it to our teachers to make sure they have what they need to be successful.
Yes.
I mean,
I mean-
there's not going to be any retribution.
Yeah, and I would not deny a request for soap and towels.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Filter, I may have mentioned this before, but I would like to ask. I have a suggestion for and I don't know if this, as an academy, and I don't know if this will fall under your realm. So correct me if I'm not talking to the right person, but I would like to recommend an academy, an investigation of the feasibility of an academy that's centered towards students that may have an inclination towards owning or running or starting their own small business, an entrepreneurship academy, if you will. And if I could get, if it would fall under your realm, if I could get your thoughts here in the future about the feasibility of such an academy.
And I think that's a good idea.
So going back, I want to just remind the committee of what we promised you earlier in the year. We first of all said that we would again poll our students to see what their interests were and how we're going to be strategic in advancing with our academies. The second part, Dr. Houlihan are working at supporting Mr. Filter in an evaluation of the program. There are some people at the state level who can come in and look at how we are moving forward and how we are looking at the efficacy as well as the efficiency of what we're doing, so we can present that evidence to you. Mr. Filters is open to having his program evaluated, and we are going to do that. We promised, and that can be a part of that.
Can you have that possibly back at the next curriculum meeting?
Yeah, that's.
Can you have the bucket? Can you have the bucket?
I can.
All right, let me tell you something, Gary. They already teach a class in CT. It's called career development. It's sort of a fill-in class for a CTE teacher that doesn't have enough to fill out his 3 periods. And in that class, we teach them how to write a resume, how to do a financial statement, how to balance a checkbook. You're aware of career development.
Career management, yes.
Yeah.
Career management now. So we kind of have that. It's just, it's not entrepreneurial class, but I saw it happen at CATA. When you name the construction academy, the building trades, nobody wants to go. But if we call it the entrepreneur academy, everybody wants to go.
Well, we are so many of our academies are teaching such great skills to actually do the work. But I'm thinking, and especially in the future, that there are going to be opportunities for people to use these skills instead of going to work in a restaurant, starting their own restaurant, rather than working in an auto shop for somebody else to repair vehicles to open their own auto shop. But there's a lot more to it than just hanging out a shingle. And there are other opportunities that such as a realtor that are a one-man self-employed business, if you will, that we could point in that direction. There are a lot of different ways this could go. I would just like to, I think this is more and more in the future, people are going to, especially younger people, are looking for different career paths other than a traditional go to work for a company, be there 30 years and retire. And I think that we would be ahead of the game if we teach those kinds of small business skills to our students who already recognize they want to go down that path, that have family members that are business people, or they are going to become part of a family business, and those skills would be relevant.
That's a good-
We can certainly look at that, Mr. Sides, and evaluate that. I agree with you 100% that there may be a benefit to that in terms of, someone who wants to create their own business. And it's not just on the trade side. If you take a look at the advancements on technology from a career readiness standpoint, what if we have students like the one that was just featured yesterday on our website who wrote his own app for a major conference and gathering in Charlotte? What if you've got someone who wants to go down that road in terms of technology, starting their own kind of tech firm startup? So we'll certainly look into that
Exactly.
for next year.
Well, couldn't that be incorporated into all the academies that we already have that as part of the requirement?
Even better idea in terms of curriculum.
Well, it kind of is in career management, because I was just sitting here reminiscing. We also we covered workman's comp, product liability insurance. All that's covered in career management.
I don't think the current curriculum covers all of that. So, but there are courses. We have principles of business, we have business finance, we have business law. So those are other courses that are available. Accounting, those are courses that are available to students.
Okay. And I learned a new phrase this time on the buckets. If you could label it have two buckets for each: current reality, how much has been spent, and future reality for 17, 18. So we'll see what's left to spend.
Okay.
And I would like for all these numbers to total your total budget that you get from all your funding sources. And I want to have another question. Where did the money from for the Forest Hills auto building, where did you find that at?
So those were months of employment that were converted at the end of last year.
You can do that.
Yes.
Convert months of employment to facilities.
So if the months of employment are increased from year to year, any of that increase can be utilized for that purpose. Yes.
That's a new one on me. But you'll have, and I would like for you to make it 8th grade competency, so I won't have
Do what I
trouble.
can. Yes.
Gary, you have any questions?
No, I just, whenever you feel like, Mr. Filter, that you feel that you had an adequate time frame to investigate the potential of an entrepreneurial academy and you want to report back, that's fine with me. I know you don't throw these things together just after a couple of weeks.
This will be a goal in the evaluation of the program, the entrepreneurship.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
One more question in the CTE area. I've had a lot of questions come from parents and some guidance counselors at the high schools. Nobody can tell them how the lottery system works, because I have guidance counselors at high schools saying that students got selected for CATA that were below the benchmark, and students that should have went didn't get selected.
So we actually post that process online on the CATA site. Every year, if there are any changes to the lottery, we bring that to the curriculum committee. There haven't been any changes in the past couple
I'm
of years.
talking about the mechanics.
That's correct. And so we put that process on, they explain that process to parents on this is what we follow regarding. And that, I believe, is the CATA site, but I know we have it because there have been times I've talked with parents and we actually pulled it online while I was on that. And I can steer you to that location.
I've had guidance counselors say, I'm looking at a kid that got selected and I'm looking at a child that's didn't get selected, and it's apple to oranges on their qualifications. I don't understand why this child didn't get selected. I don't understand why this one.
So they all have to meet the same criteria to go into the lottery, because the lottery is what we call face neutral, which means once they enter the lottery, they become a number. So their qualifications have to be the same across for whatever academy they're applying for.
Well, I guess that was his point.
Yeah.
They don't, these are not two equally qualified children.
Well, to what Dr. Jones is saying is that you have to meet a minimum set of qualifications to even be considered to even go into the lottery.
Shouldn't we start at the top and go down on,
So every student that wishes to be in the lottery, we judge those equally. Now, of course, remember your dance and your performing arts lottery is different. That's audition based. But the other ones, any student that wants to go in, we accept and they follow the process. Once they meet the qualifications, they all are assigned a number and then we go through that process.
who's on that audition team?
It would be the staff of CATA in that area. Yes, sir.
Okay. Pre-kindergarten classes. Mr. Sides asked to have this added, so we can let Dr. Jones, we're through with you, sir.
Does he want to give us any specific questions or direction?
Yeah, Mr. Sides, did you have a particular question about pre-K?
Well, I had asked to consider the feasibility of adding more pre-K classes, particularly at Walter Bickett, to meet the need of over need than we had the slots to maintain. And I had asked that investigate through Head Start and through, was it the Alliance for Children, how much unfilled need we had, the cost of adding classrooms from our own operational funding in order to meet that need, so that all the additional slots were opened up to meet any of our pre-K that would be going into Walter Bickett would be met. Was that clear, or was that is that something that's been looked at?
So the first process that took place in that, Mr. Sides, and I've got Ms. Gibson here with me, is that under the Title I pre-K, there are three types of Title I pre-K that we have here in the system. We have, first of all, three types of pre-K. One of those is the Title I pre-K, where we have 9 classes. And what we did is we asked Ms. Gibson this past month after your request to go by and look at the sizes and make sure we have maximized those. So she accomplished that in the past month. And do you want to make any comments on that?
Yeah, so I did check with our rosters at all 9 schools. We are at capacity of 18 students at each school, with the exception of 2, Marshall and Union, and they are at 17 at this point. I'm working with the principals on those 2 classrooms.
We want to add and bring those up to 18, but they're working with 2 student situations to support those. So we feel we'll have that cleared up soon. So that was the first thing we wanted to do and make sure that we accomplished with our Title I. So we have added there. The next thing is the North Carolina pre-K that we offer, and we have a total of 9 classes, and 7 of those are at Walter Bickett Ed Center. We also are offered, and this is sponsored through the Alliance for Children. Ms. Suzanne Walters works with that and works in supporting. Their numbers are varied. You have some classes that have 16, you have a class of 18, a class of 17, and you do have 2 classes that have a lower enrollment of 11. And so what we want to ask is how they can maximize those numbers. They control the students that are added into that program. So we're making the request to see, are there any students waiting from North Carolina pre-K that they can use to maximize those classes? But that's a total of 9 classes.
Okay.
And then the third pre-K.
I'm sorry, Dr. Jones, can I interrupt for a second? How many classes did you say we had under NC pre-K?
We have 9 classes, and 7 of those are at Walter Bickett Education Center.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so if they maximize, or let's say that they were able to collapse a class, then if we have additional room that is available in the wing where you have pre-K. And if you're looking at the Walter Bickett Education Center, this is the wing that is at the front, because we can't put pre-K classes in the older building except on the first floor. You cannot, by code, put those students in the basement area, the lower level, or on the third floor. The pre-K classes would be there, and we don't have any classrooms that are established in that area. However, in that front wing where you have the pre-K classes, if we are able to provide space, we would be open to adding. So we would talk with North Carolina Pre-K to see if there are additional classes or if they can work with their enrollment to create an additional. But if we have space, we certainly can maximize and add that.
Okay, do we know, if we had room to do that and we had the unmet need, are they going to help us with funding for supplies and teachers for those classes? Or do we know, are they tapped out?
I don't,
I think he's talking about NC Pre-K.
it's a state allotment.
Mr. Sides, that's
Pre-K.
NC Pre-K is governed by the state of North Carolina, so that's a state allotment formula. They have not been able to come back to us with a commitment to expand. And so we're kind of at the mercy of the state in terms of their funding allotment.
If I can add.
So if their funding allotment is already taken, or they're maxed out as far as the number of slots they can provide, for us to meet any currently unmet need, that would take UCPS operating funds, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so we would have to pay for the teachers and to equip the classrooms if the Alliance comes back to us and says, sorry, we don't have any more slots or allotment, correct?
Correct.
And we're going to have to find,
Okay,
we're going to have to find the space
I'm
too,
sorry?
Garrett. We're going to have to find the space too.
well, they're saying we've got space at the front of Walter Bickett Education Center. We might be able to establish additional classrooms.
If
We
we,
just may have to staff it, and we may have to equip it on our own dime. We may not be able to depend on anybody else's funds.
so
So I guess my question is, and are you're obviously not getting, well, do we know what exactly, how many there are on the waiting list that have not been able to, either by the NC Pre-K, the Title I, or Head Start, or whoever, have not been able to find a place? Do we know that number?
Gary, we do. It's 200. It's 134.
so on the north,
Wait a minute. I may be wrong. 40. It's 134. I took 40. I took how many applied and took away
It says
from
wait list.
so if you look at the waiting list at the bottom of the Title I, of the 9 Title I Pre-K, we have 19 students that are on waiting list,
Right.
correct?
That total applied 294 was to the Title I Pre-K program. We were able to refer 141 that we could not fill to NC Pre-K. We have a waiting list in the Title I Pre-Ks of 19 students.
Okay.
And for the North Carolina
19 in Title I?
in Title I. And those classes are full. We do have 2 classes that have 17, but we have students that we feel will make 18, but we're working with those students. So those students are not reflected in the waiting list. Now, for the North Carolina Pre-K, let me say to you, Mr. Sides, that as a result of the conversation, Dr. Houlihan requested that I meet with Linda Smith from the Alliance for Children to establish a task force to look at what we're doing with pre-K across the board, and a task force that would involve the Alliance for Children as well as other entities within the community to look at our pre-K programs and what we're doing birth to kindergarten. Part of that discussion that we have, and I met with Ms. Smith, and they've moved locations this past month, so she is getting back with me and setting up a date. But part of that discussion is, are we maximizing our North Carolina pre-K enrollment? And in doing that, are there any barriers the school system is presenting on that side? Is there anything they're saying or they perceive that maybe we're not doing that we can maximize? That's part of that discussion Dr. Houlihan has. So That is in progress right now.
So Dr. Jones, going back to what Mr. Sides had asked, is there currently space at Walter Bickett Ed Center for additional classrooms?
There is currently no space that we're aware of at Walter Bickett in that front part of that building. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Jones, would you explain to the committee what you told me about that one position, one student position in each school that you're required to hold open?
Okay, so that was what we had before you see the numbers here on the North Carolina, the Title I pre-K, we were holding all of those at 17 because we were looking at McKinney-Vento, those students, and holding a spot if a student would be considered homeless, that we would have space. However, explain the change you made in that.
So I confirmed with the state if it was acceptable to refer those students to NC Pre-K because they do have openings. It was confirmed.
But I
could
thought
do
we
that.
also went ahead when we didn't have one. I thought you told me we went ahead and used that one spot up.
That's what we're doing now. That's
And I
what
think
we,
that's wise.
We
That's-
did. We filled
yes, sir.
them.
And,
that's what
but
this
still, if a
reflects.
homeless child comes in, Gary, they will have to be put in a class. We would just have to get a waiver to go to 18, right?
or they could
Or
go,
19.
or they could go to a North Carolina pre-K
We'll
class.
refer to NC Pre-K
Yes.
Yeah.
where they have a spot. Mhm.
I did, go ahead.
Is Head Start part of this discussion as well? The Head Start people?
Head Start is not a part of that, of this discussion. No, sir. We have not talked with Head Start regarding their numbers because they are managed by North Carolina pre-K.
All right, Dr. Jones, I have a question. When I was teaching, I had some parents that were wanting to get their kids in Head Start or pre-K. And at that time, if you test out of there, your child can't go because he scored so high. And at that time I asked, and it seemed that those pre-K spots were held for a child that needs an extra year of mythology. Is that still true?
I can speak to the Title I pre-K programs,
Uh-huh.
and we do prioritize based on need, developmental and academic need. We screen them, prioritize, and so
Yeah.
we're serving our most at
Needed.
need with our
Right.
spots.
Well, I had a parent that come to me before I was ever on the board, and she was disappointed. And I said, you should be happy because they had to go in for testing, and he tested above. They said he tested where he did not need pre-K.
Okay.
Probably not,
Okay.
doesn't need pre-K, but for these Title I spots, we're filling those spots with.
He was in Rock Rest, and he's getting all S's and A's. He's like in the 4th grade now. This child's very,
Mhm,
accelerating
sure.
in school, and they were really wanting it to be a year earlier, but they were disappointed when he didn't make it in. And that's
Okay.
what,
Could I ask a question?
yes, sir.
So we currently have 19 on the Title I waiting list, and we're not sure how many are on the NC pre-K waiting list?
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
But-
And we don't have any room at Walter Bickett to add another classroom, even if we were so inclined. Is that what I'm
That-
taking from this?
That is my understanding. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay. Dr. Houlihan, can I talk to you about that task force at another time?
Absolutely. This is something that's really come out of, I've kind of been a little bit concerned because we do not operate much in the space between birth to age 8, or even birth to age 5. We basically get them when they're in pre-K or kindergarten, but we don't do much in the early, most formative years of development, which is why I'm very much interested in partnering with agencies and making sure that we're maximizing our resources. But I'm happy to discuss that with you at a later time.
And we, unlike some different school districts in the state, do not administer the Head Start program here in Union County.
No, sir.
I believe there's one site.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's not part of
That's really all I had.
That's-
I'll just say, for what it's worth, I'm a big proponent of early childhood education. And if we had the funding and the space for universal pre-K, I'd come to you tomorrow with a recommendation on how to do that. But given the complexities of what we have, the lack of funding from the state, what's happening with K-3 class sizes next year as maintained in current law, and looking at our current classroom spaces, pre-K
Right.
is something I'd love to do, but we just have to be very thoughtful on whether or not we can. So
Right.
we want to make
Right.
sure that
Under
those,
the constraints. Yeah.
exactly.
If I could just throw in one more thing, a pre-K classroom is required to meet certain regarding size and space. So bathrooms, so we have to be very selective about the type of classroom that we would place those in.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Any other comments from any other board members? Is Head Start a part of us, or it's not, is it?
It is,
No, it's a separate federally program.
it's at the Winchester School.
So that's a wholly different funded program.
Yes.
Okay,
And it's administered, yeah.
Dr. Jones thought it was wise if, and I will yield to you ladies, would y'all like to set the date for the next meeting? Of course, Mr. Sides can have input, but I'll do it anytime y'all can, if you want to look at your calendar and get a hold of Dr. Jones, I will do it anytime it's convenient for y'all.
Anytime.
Maybe call him by Friday
Look at possibly the end of the month, the last week of the month.
so we could announce it at the board
That
meeting.
is correct.
Right. And Dr. Jones or Miss Hinetail and Mr. Sides could let you know what dates they've set for policy. Ants, Joe and Matt could do spit, and y'all can. Dr. Jones, if they've got dates nailed down, Miss Hinetail sent out a date this morning, so,
Okay.
but it's not
We
concrete.
do not have a date for finance, but we will need to have a meeting. We will have enough of an agenda that we will need a separate meeting versus prior to a board meeting.
Okay. All right, that's good. And let me bring y'all up to date on calendar committee. I'm on that, and Senator Tucker. Chris Barnes informed me that one of 27 House bills that was approved almost unanimously is stuck in committee over in the Senate. I begged Tommy Tucker, and he said if he could find a record big enough to pull our bill out, he would pull it out and try to get it passed. I told him use this as a pilot project, anything. And he said, I'll do what I can. And that's all we can ask for him. And he said, don't expect it to happen tomorrow. But what I'm telling you, Mr. Barnes told me this last week at the committee meeting. We will approve our calendar committee when y'all vote on it, with an asterisk on there that we may revisit it if the Senate gives us flexibility. And, all you can do is be nice to Senator Tucker and hope he can pull it off. If he does, it gives us a tremendous advantage, doesn't it, Dr. Houlihan?
It would give us a lot of flexibility, tremendous amount in terms of when we can, test when the semester would end, different breaks, et cetera. So if he can get it passed, that'd be phenomenal.
And if each one of y'all, and I will tell the full board, if you want to contact him, thank him for even considering it. Because, he could have said no, even though he represents us, or he could have said, I'm too busy. But I sold him on the sensibility of it. Do y'all have anything else before I ask for a motion to adjourn? Christina,
No.
pull
Yeah,
the
it's been long
trigger.
enough, yeah. Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Garrett?